Well, hello everyone. Today I want to relate something that happened very recently in the gym that relates to a point that a lot of people have been talking about. It's been in the news a lot. I was at the gym and I was in the locker room after, and there was a whole slew of very attractive guys there. Just five or six really attractive, in shape guys, just great bodies all around. And they were really, really nice guys. Very chummy, very polite, very sociable. And being in their presence really made me cognizant of my yearning to date one of them. I really wanted to. Every one of them, I talked to them all in the hot tub, in the steam room. We took showers together. Great guys. And I'd like to spend a lot of time with any one of them. There were a couple I could have picked, but all of them were pretty good. And this is something I very definitely need. I have been looking for that in my life for a long time. And the problem is that none of these guys are gay. I mean, it's possible some of them are, but I checked Grindr, none of them were on Grindr. I talked to them, I didn't get that vibe. As far as I can tell, they're straight bros. Interestingly enough, straight bros who like to go to the gym and not work out and spend an hour in the spa naked, taking steam baths with each other, but straight bros nonetheless. And I'm struck by the utter injustice of the entire situation. There is something that I need, way more than I need, things like, I don't know, cakes or pizza. Um, and these people have it. They have what I need, and they're not willing to give it to me. And that to me is a crime. That is a social injustice that should be redressed. All right, they should not be able to have bodies like that and temperaments like that and then deny them to people who, for no choice of their own, are attracted to that. It's not like I chose to be gay. I was born this way. I grew up this way. It's not like something that I elected to do, and it's a need that I have. And these guys, they're out there. I mean, they're in a way flaunting it. They're coming to show off, but it's not for sale. Not to me. Not to anyone for that matter. Just because I'm gay. I mean, if I was a woman, if I was an attractive woman, they probably would be like, "Hey, this is fine. Go ahead. You can have a relationship with me. We can have sex. We can do whatever." But since I'm a man, they're not up for that, so far as I can tell. And even if like in some situation they switched or whatever, you shouldn't have to go to all these, jump through all these hoops to get somebody to provide you one of your needs. All right, they should be required to provide it, up front without any hassle. So, I've thought about this a lot, and I've heard people talk about it, and people seem to get hung up on, look, you can't do that. I mean, obviously, you can force someone who owns a business or an employer or employee who works at a business to provide something that somebody wants. You can do that, but you can't tell someone, in their personal life to do that, and that's why there's no contradiction. You can do one or the other. But the thing is personal autonomy is not like a divisible principle. You can't have personal autonomy in one section area and then not in another, without drawing a very arbitrary line. And if we look at the history, the Supreme Court decided that they have the right to regulate wages, price controls, to enforce government regulations on things because of interstate commerce. And I've heard people say that it's ridiculous to, say that you can force someone into a relationship because you like them, because that's not interstate commerce, and the government can only regulate interstate commerce. But of course, those people obviously are not aware of the court decisions through which the government has explained where its rights lies in terms of international commerce or interstate commerce. Because in the court decisions in the 30s during the New Deal, they basically said, even if you consume everything yourself, if you do anything that affects the price, and that price is in that commodity, whatever it may be, is sold across interstate borders, then you're affecting the price in the whole country, and that falls under their thing. So the classic case was a farmer who was producing some crop, I think wheat, I might be wrong about that, and he wasn't selling it, he wasn't taking it to stores or anything like that, or he certainly wasn't shipping it across state lines. He was feeding it to his own livestock or consuming it himself. But they said by him doing that, it affects the price of that good everywhere, not just in his area. And so he is, by electing to not sell it, that's also an economic effect. And by that virtue, they can regulate him. Well, and people say, well, dating, so relationships, these aren't economic activities. Well, ridiculous. All right, I have gym memberships in 3 different states just so I can meet guys. All right, I routinely cross state lines to date. I live in New Hampshire. There's a lot of guys in Massachusetts who like Midwestern people. All the guys on the East Coast, they're effeminate, and they like the bigger corn-fed guys from out west. And so, yeah, I go to Massachusetts all the time to meet people. When I was working, I worked in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and I was crossing state lines to meet guys in both cases. And every time I cross, it was either to go to the gym, to go to the movies, to go shopping, to go to a restaurant, to hang out at a park. And in all these cases, I was spending money on gas, on the commodities, all that kind of stuff. In hotels, done that plenty of times. That's crossing state boundaries all the time. I bought all kinds of equipment. I bought all kinds of clothing and accoutrements from all over the world, not just from in the United States, to aid in my dating. So the idea that it's not interstate commerce, I think, is nebulous. I mean, it's clearly interstate commerce. It affects everything. Like the dating apps that we use, Grindr is not limited to state by state. It draws a circle everywhere. And whether we're talking about Match or OkCupid or Scruff or Adam for Adam or any of these other applications, all of them are nationwide or international. Fuck, I get fucking messages from Russia and Peru all the time, France, wherever. So clearly this, and you invest more time and more of your energy and effort and investment in resources in a relationship, or if you're not in a relationship, and you're investing it differently than you would if you were in a relationship, then in pizza or pastries or riding the bus or any of these other things. So it's a completely silly argument to say, well, it exists in one and then the other. Now, like some libertarians out there will say, and not just libertarians, there are other people who say this too, who will look at this argument and say, look, that's what the Supreme Court says, but that's a violation of rights. There's a conception of morality and deontology that goes beyond the dictates of the federal judiciary, and they judge. They judge. I mean, can you believe this? They actually judge the efficacy of an action by some standard other than government dictation, which as liberals we understand as ridiculous, right? There is no morality, there is no justice, there is no law beyond state dictates. I mean, you need to have an objective, impartial observer enforcing and interpreting laws. And of course, the federal judicial branch is just that. All right, the Supreme Court is completely objective. They have no bias whatsoever. They are not a part of the government. They're completely independent. They have no conflict of interest. Whenever there's any kind of question about the role of government authority, the scope of government authority, the rights of the government relative to other people, it only stands to reason that the government decide the bounds of that decision. And as liberals understand this, and liberals never question the moral authority of governments ever, because you can't. There is no other morality besides government. And we know that appointees to the judiciary, to the Supreme Court, they're not political appointees. Presidents look for people who are the most sagacious, who have the greatest legal theories, who are the most respected in terms of their justice and their even-handedness, and those are the people who get appointed to the court. Okay, not personal friends or political allies or anything like this. Everyone who's ever been nominated and approved, it's been because they were completely impartial and unbiased in every way. I mean, that's why no one really argues. You know, when there's a certain president like a George Bush or Barack Obama, no one ever worries if a justice retires who they're going to nominate, because we always know that whoever the president is and whatever his politics, they will always nominate a completely objective person to the Supreme Court, and that the decisions that they come to, whether it's 5-4 or 9-1 or whatever it is, or 9-0, that they're completely objectively irrefutable. That there's no argument to be made, and the Supreme Court has always been correct. It always will be correct, and there's no argument past that. So, people can raise up and say, "Oh, you have rights. You shouldn't have to, go and associate with somebody. You have freedom of association, and by its corollary, the freedom of disassociation." But all of that has been decided. There's no more debate on those issues because the Supreme Court has said so, and there's no way to really argue against that. And there's nobody out there. There's no liberals out there who ever criticize any decisions of the government along these lines. Everyone knows that the Supreme Court, that the federal government and government generally, is completely objective and unbiased, especially when it comes to its own power. It never interprets it, in a biased way. Now, there's some clever libertarians out there who might come out and say, well, what if hypothetically somebody like Rand Paul got elected to office, which not very likely, but not impossible either. And what if he goes and he's going to nominate these radical anti-government judges who think that there's a limited scope and power and all this stuff, and say they get into the Supreme Court and they overturn a whole bunch of laws. Would that then mean that those laws are wrong all along? Well, no, because there's a right way to interpret the Constitution, there's a wrong way to interpret the Constitution, and as long as the justices interpret the way that I like, then it's not refutable. I don't need a better argument. If they interpret it in a way that I don't like, then they're biased and political hacks, and it's just an indication of how manipulated the system is, and I can disregard that. So there's no problem there. There's no problem there at all. So yeah, it's pretty disheartening to me to see. I mean, we've got like the need to have someone in your life is so much stronger than these other little things that people are worried about. The idea that you can't have somebody provide, you can't force somebody to provide it for you. You have a right. You have a right for people to give you a service. If you need that service, you have a right. They must give it to you. We've established this already. So, the idea that, well, they have the freedom to say no or whatever, it's slavery for them to be able to deny working against their will. All right. If for them to be able to say, I don't want to associate with you, then they are in effect enslaving you by saying that they won't do whatever you want for them. And people say, well, whatever you want, that's hyperbole, like who's asking that? But there isn't a gooder service we can name that can be couched as a need, at least to certain people. And there's no, you've got these guys. The only reason they're not going out with me is because of some, reactionary heterosexual heterodoxy that is oppressive in its very nature. The fact that they're attracted to women is only going to contribute to overpopulation anyway. So honestly, they should be forced to. We can just join Obamacare afterwards, and we won't have to worry about any diseases we might catch because the government will take care of that also. If they're going to go to the trouble, especially if they're going to get into shape, if they're going to go to trouble to get into shape and flaunt around their fucking pecs and their nice asses, it's like putting out advertising. It's like putting out signs, opening up a storefront, and then when someone comes up and comes in and wants your services, saying no, I only serve certain people. How racist and sexist and bigoted is that, right? If they're gonna flaunt, if they're gonna open up shop, so to speak, in public, these are fucking public gyms, communal showers, and then they're out in the street walking around in their tight clothes, advertising to everybody. And then to tell them no, I don't want to associate with you, I don't want to go to the movies with you. I don't want to go out to dinner with you. I don't want to go do whatever with you. How is that fair? How is that freedom? Is that the kind of country we want to live in? I don't think so. And is it within the government's purview to mandate that they do? Of course it is. Of course it is. It affects the economy in a million ways more than that farmer in his wheat field back in the New Deal. A million times more. So obviously, you know, the personal autonomy doesn't exist. There is only state autonomy. The state, you can't have rights and freedom without the government anyway. So it's just pretentious to speak in terms that imply some kind of vestige, vesting rights in individuals. That doesn't exist. Only the state exists. Only the rights of the government exist. And if it sees fit to delegate some amount of privilege to you here and there, then that's just an example of how magnanimous it is and how great it is. But this is something that needs to be addressed. Okay, it's completely just look at the dating apps for homosexuals. It's full of desperation. It's full of people who can't find what they need. They yearn. They don't spend their nights thinking about how much they want to have cakes and pizza. They spend their nights thinking about how much they want a man. And we've got 95% of the male population that is just so anti-gay that they won't date them, that they withdraw their sexual services and their companionment services and restrict them artificially to themselves. It's segregation of the very worst type, of a minority group against a minority group by a majority group. So, the precedent here has already been laid. This is the new area where we need to go. It's intellectually dishonest to say, oh, well, we can force association for, goods and services, but not for social interactions generally. Why? If state sculpture, if state direction is so great for how we manage our healthcare or the auto industry or labor relations or any of these other things, everything essentially, then why isn't it also great for managing, the way we get sexual gratification or our living arrangement? I mean, we have public housing, right? Well, maybe we should start forcing straight guys to pair up with gay guys, and there's other things too, because there's also a lot of intolerance and bigotry against people who are unattractive, who are ugly, who are fat, who are jerks, who are lazy, who have diseases. I mean, can you believe that there are actually people out there who will not have sex with you if you have HIV? Can you believe that? Can you believe the bigotry inherent in the system, where we have people who are so selfish that rather than provide goods and services to somebody who needs them, who wants them more than anything, they'll refrain from them. They will refuse to do that. They will refuse to just give, a couple inches of their life, a couple times a day or whatever, to satisfy someone else's needs. I mean, Europe has already figured this out. I mean, the UK is giving people hookers now that need them, because you need it. You didn't evolve to have a job. You didn't evolve to have a car or even to have healthcare. You evolved to fucking have sex. That's your evolutionary prerogative, is to have sex. That's the number one thing you exist to do, is to have sex. It's more important than anything else other than taking your next breath. But the only reason you need to take your next breath is to have sex. And not just sex, but with, like with a companion, with a partner. It can't just, it could be just random. That's fine too. But like, you need more than that. And why, if the government's going to provide everything else that's less important, shouldn't it provide the thing that's most important? So, I think that this is a pretty open and shut issue. I'm definitely going to vote for Hillary because I know she understands this very well. I never heard her talk about it or say it, but since I believe these things, I'm projecting onto her. I just assume that she also believes them, and that if I vote for her, not only will she agree with me, she will know what my will is based on my vote, and she will work tirelessly in her time in office to make whatever my wishes are come true. That's how democracy works. When you vote for somebody, the politician, their brain like detects it. It's quite interesting. When they get elected, they become imbued with the will of society, and they can actually sense the will of everybody who voted. And if you voted for them, it's you know how like Christians believe in you pray to God and like God knows what you want. It's completely ridiculous. You have to cast a ballot. If you cast a ballot, then God, not God, but the politicians, God on earth, they will know what you want. And not only will they know it, I mean they'll know it. They'll know whatever your will is, and they'll be able to balance your will with everyone else's will. They have no other motivation but to manifest your will. They don't care about anything else. They're completely altruistic. They only want, and if some of the details, if you don't pay close attention, it's really obvious that they're trying to help you. I mean, if you just close your mind and your ears and just wait and interpret some of the vague things they say, you can prove to yourself that they're doing exactly what you want. And then you can defend them against their detractors, who are actually your detractors, right? If someone criticizes a politician, they're criticizing the person who's trying to manifest your will. They're criticizing you. It's personal, right? Like if someone attacks Hillary Clinton, they're attacking my hopes and dreams regarding dating these hot guys at the gym. And that's why I get so upset about it. I mean, it's one thing if it was just a politician who was selfish, who was just doing their own thing. Like that wouldn't bother me so much because they're just a bullshit politician. But the only bullshit politicians are on the other party, or the ones who appoint chief justices that I don't agree with. Like other than that, they're all totally altruistic, selfless politicians. And not only is every action that they take, you know, dedicated to the betterment of society, and me in particular, they're never wrong either. They have perfect wisdom. All those ballots, it's like they accumulate the aggregate knowledge of all of society. And with that knowledge, they're then able to govern effectively. There is no other mechanism within society, none, uh, that that conveys so much information. All the information in society is concentrated like a pyramid, and at the top is the politician, the president, and he can feel and sense everything from the bottom. And when I look up, he's, or she, him, it, is reflecting all of my hopes and dreams, and is the sun, the light that makes the world go round. So yeah, that's definitely what needs to happen. Hillary 2016 all the way. Uh, and I mean, it's only a matter of time. There's no intellectual, honest person could deny that this is the case. This is what needs to happen. These people need to stop being homophobic and denying people what they need, what they want. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I will talk to you all later.